You've watched the video about animal cell organelles. Now we're going to look at plant cells. So, if you remember from the animal cell, if we just look here at my plant cell, the shape of the animal cell is different. It was more circular, whereas the plant cell is more rectangular. Also, you can see that there are already some similar structures, like we have an outer barrier of the plant cell, and we have some similar organelles inside that they're ones that we're not going to talk about, but that exist. And there are more, of course. We're just, for simplicity's sake, not putting all that in there. But let's go ahead and look here at the really, really important similarities and differences between plant and animal cells. So first of all, here again, I'm going to have a big circle in the middle. That's going to be the brain of my cell, which means that is going to be the nucleus, just as in animal cells. So I have my nucleus. Also in a plant cell, just as in an animal cell, you have these little circles, which is what we call the lysosomes. And the lysosomes are like the garbage disposal of the cell. They get rid of any kind of waste or unwanted things that may find their way into the inside of the cell. We also have here and here and here, here. Those little weird shaped things, which we call the mitochondria. And remember, those are the things, the organelles inside the cells that turn food into energy. Um, let's see, anything else that's the same? Well, we have the inside, which is the same. So all of this white space. Where the organelles are, that's called the cytoplasm. And we also have this part that is the same, this inner rectangular shape. And that is the cell membrane of the plasma membrane. And we said that was like the doors or the skin of the cell. It allows sort of, it just decides what can come into and out of the cell. So now we're on to our differences. Now I'm going to use green to represent the differences because plants are green. So, first of all, this next thing is sort of like the mitochondria, but with the mitochondria, it takes food and makes it into energy. If you think about how animals eat, or how animals get food as they eat, they take something in. Plants don't do that. Plants, you'll never see a plant sitting down at Outback Steakhouse waiting to order some food. What they do is they think, oh man, I'm hungry. Sunlight hits them, a bunch of cool things happen inside, and then they're fed. They make typically this sugar called glucose, and that's what the mitochondria use. They use that glucose, and they turn it into usable energy for the cell, ATP. So, in order to get that glucose, though, they have to have this special organelle, which is called, and I'm going to make sort of got stacks in it instead of the little crisscross membrane, the little squiggly membrane that mitochondria have. These organelles have stacks, and these are called the chloroplasts. And just like the mitochondria, there are usually several inside of plant cells. So I'll draw him one. So the chloroplasts are specialized organelles in plant cells, where when sunlight hits them, they make energy. They make food. They make typically glucose that the mitochondria can then turn into energy. The next organelle is similar. There's one that's similar to this organelle in an animal cell, but there's a specialized one in plant cells, and that's the vacuole. So in an animal cell, the vacuole would have been like this size, right? I mean, it was in there. The point is to store things, either that the cell doesn't need right now or whatever. But in plant cells, it's a kind of a big deal. So a vacuole will look like this. it will take up a lot of space in the cell. So, in plant cells, we don't call it the vacuole. We call it the central vacuole. So, what the central vacuole does is it's responsible for really two things, and that is storage, just like in an animal cell, it stores wastewater, nutrients, whatever, and it's also used for support. So, when water goes into the central vacuole, it expands, and whenever the central vacuole expands, then the plant cell becomes like able to stand up more. So that sort of helps plants stand up. If they're standing upright and looking good, their central vacuole is full. If they are wilted, then there probably needs to be some more water added to the plant because its central vacuole is empty. So it has no support. And the third difference is this outer wall right here. So here we have this skin around it, which is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. And it has the little tiny pores on it that decides, like doors, decides what goes into and out of the cell. We call that selectively permeable membrane. It chooses what goes through. But we have this outer wall too. And we coincidentally call it the cell wall. And that's like the outside of the school building. So we have these walls around the whole school building, and then inside we have walls that separate different classrooms. So you have the walls around the whole thing, and then you have the wall around the smaller thing where all the stuff's going on inside. So the cell wall is really for protection. It is the rigid outer layer. And that, what I always say, is what is the big difference between animals and plants, is plants don't really dance. They're not able to move freely. Now, when the wind blows, they may, move with the wind, but they don't just do their own thing. You won't see a plant running. If you do, something else is wrong. So the cell wall is sort of responsible for that. It's more solid and more rigid than what animal cells have. So again, the three main differences in plant cells and animal cells that we will talk about are the chloroplasts, which is where plants make their food by sunlight and other things. We have the central vacuole, the large central vacuole. It stores water, waste, nutrients, whatever, and it also offers support for the plant, help it stand upright, or it may cause it to wilt if there's not enough water, things like that. And we have the cell wall, which is the outermost barrier. It's the rigid outer layer that's used for protection of the plant.